Welcome to the 99% Local Podcast. As always, if you would like to get in touch with me, send me an email at 99percentlocalpod@gmail.com or hit me up on the website at 99percentlocalpod.com. Also, if you'd like to contribute to this show by buying a t-shirt or a sticker, you can do that at 99percentlocalpod.com/contribute. My guest on this week's show is designing and hand-making leather and wood goods and shipping them all over the world. He's calling his business Curtis Rempel Handcrafted. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Curtis is one half of the country music duo High Valley, which is composed of Curtis and his brother Brad. Just a little bit about High Valley. After a number of chart successes in Canada between 2010 and 2015, High Valley were signed to a record deal here in Nashville. Shortly after that, the single Make You Mine was released to country radio and debuted at number 56 on the U.S. country charts, and have since been nominated for and have won several music awards. If you want to hear more about High Valley's story, I would recommend you check out episode number 128 from the Bobbycast podcast, hosted by Bobby Bones, in which the guys talk more about the road to landing a record deal and having success on the radio. We hardly talk about High Valley at all on this episode, as I wanted to focus on Curtis's passion for handmade leather and wood goods, and what goes into the process of his creations, and what he's doing to share his work with the rest of the world. You can find Curtis Rempel Handcrafted at curtisrempel.com, which is CurtisRempel, curtisrempel.com, and on Instagram at curtis.rempel. And just a side note, since he hand makes everything, Christmas orders must be placed by November 15th. So let's get to it. Enjoy my conversation with Curtis Rempel of Curtis Rempel Handcrafted and the country music duo High Valley. So I have Curtis Rempel. He's one half of the brother country duo High Valley. That's not the primary reason we're talking today, but High Valley is comprised of brothers Brad and Curtis Rempel. You guys have been nominated for and have won several awards through the years. But as I said, the main thing we're going to talk about is this handcrafted business or hobby, whatever you would call it, that you're doing. You're doing handmade leather and wood goods, made to order. You're doing all the designing and crafting yourself.
That's correct. Yeah. I started doing that type of thing. I guess it's been almost 5 years since I started really getting into the woodworking. I grew up on a farm, so I was using different tools for different projects all the time, but it wasn't really a creative outlet at that time. Everything was practical, but I learned to work with my hands, and a few years ago, I decided to start building things out of wood and really loved it and loved designing things and coming up with new ideas. And I've been doing leathercraft for about a year now, and it's been awesome.
Okay, so let's take a step back. So you're originally from, and I'm probably going to mess this up. Is it Blumenort?
That's exactly right. Blumenort is kind of it's kind of an area in the country. It's not like a town or a village even. It's very spread out, but that was the part of the country that I grew up in, 20 miles from a town called La Crete. And La Crete was 500 miles from a town called Edmonton, and that was the nearest city, or the nearest big enough city to get on an airplane. So we would drive 500 miles if we needed to get anywhere.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So going more into this, you actually grew up in, it was a Mennonite community, correct?
Yeah. And that's a whole conversation in itself. But yeah, our background is definitely Mennonite. My mom and dad grew up riding horse and buggy, no electricity, in Mexico, actually, in a Mennonite colony down there. And there's Mennonite colonies everywhere. And, they look a lot like an Amish community, and most Americans have been exposed to Amish to some degree. But yeah, it's kind of similar. And that's definitely my background. And most of the people in La Crete, Alberta, where I'm from, well, I'm from 20 miles from that town, but that's kind of where we did all our shopping and our business. Almost everybody from that town came from Mexico or Bolivia or immigrated from some Mennonite colony somewhere. And almost everybody in that town has the same background.
Well, awesome. So yeah, the Mennonite and Amish thing, I'm familiar with Amish culture. I had family in Ohio, and we'd go out there when I was a kid all the time, and they
Yeah.
were right in the middle of the Amish community. So is there what's the biggest difference between, Mennonite and Amish?
Man, I mean, it's so hard. I would say there's probably a lot of different types of Amish, but I would say most of them are pretty similar to each other. But with Mennonites, it depends on who you ask. I mean, I still call myself a Mennonite, but not religiously. It's totally like culturally. Like you call yourself an American, I call myself
Right.
a Mennonite. It really just basically means culture, I guess, or if somebody's Irish, it's almost a nationality, or it's like a country without borders. So it's, I got Mennonite blood in my veins. I
Yeah.
like the food and it's my background. So I still call myself a Mennonite, even though we don't go to a Mennonite church or have any type of religious Mennonite involvement.
What I know about you, your brother, your family, you grew up driving combines on your family's farm, working on your farm. I know you guys grew up singing and playing music as well. So how did that come about with living in that type of community?
Yeah, I mean, we were far away from anything, and so it's I guess we just found other ways to entertain ourselves. And I've got three older sisters. I'm the youngest of six kids, and mom and dad played music before they even had kids. They would, jam with their friends. They didn't tour or anything like that, but they had guitars and they played. And then my sisters were born, and then my mom would, sing to them, and then they learned to sing and they sang together and they started singing together in church. And then mom and dad had three boys. It was three girls and then three boys. And I mean, I was the sixth kid, so by the time I came along, there was just so much like harmony and guitar playing in the house. I didn't stand a chance, So it became a pretty natural direction for us. And me and Brad are the ones that decided to move to Nashville and make a go of it. And yeah, that's how we've been paying the bills for. Man, I guess it's the only job I've ever had, and I've been doing it for about 15 years now, I guess.
Yeah. What year was it that you actually came to Nashville?
Let's see. It was the beginning of 2003, I think. No, 2003. I'm 2013. I'm 10 years off.
2013. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was that transition from, small town living, moving to Nashville,
Yeah.
the music city?
We had been working in Nashville for years already, so made so many trips. We'd been touring a lot already at that point, so I'd seen a lot of things, but actually changing my home base, that was quite the transition. My wife and I got married. We started dating and we got married half a year later, and then a month later we moved to Nashville. So and then 9 months later we were pregnant. So our lives changed dramatically over the course of a year. And it was a shock to the system. I mean, I had been traveling for a while, and it was a little harder for my wife because she was at home and I would hit the road, and she was just, kind of alone in this big city. And it was hard. Honestly, it was hard to build those relationships that we left from home, because everybody that we left, we knew since we were kids. And honestly, we thought it would be easy because we like people and we like making friends, and we're both pretty good at it. But we had always been in environments where, she went to college and she had everything in common with every other kid in college. So immediately you make friends. And now suddenly we're these young Canadians that are suddenly in Nashville, and we're trying to like build these long-term relationships. And we just realized that it takes a lot of work and time to really build those deep connections with people that are similar to the connections we had with people back home. And we just kept slugging and kept investing in people, and now we've got a great community of people around us, and now we finally feel at home down here. But it did take a minute.
Yeah. Now you're down in Colombia, right? And if you're not okay with me saying that, I can edit this out.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm in Columbia. I'm pretty close to Spring Hill though. We do most of our business in Spring Hill, but we love the square in Columbia and Los Potros Tacos and Muletown Coffee and all that stuff.
Yeah, and from the looks of social media, you kind of made yourself right at home. Are you living on a farm now? I know you got some land with maybe chickens and cows.
Yeah, we're on a little farm, and yeah, we got some laying hens. We got 21 chickens and 2 cows that are gonna calve in the spring, and then we're gonna start raising our own beef, and that's the plan. It's just fun. That's the reason I'm into that type of thing. Just kind of doing my best to go back in time to simpler times where you're just aware of what you're putting in your body, and just kind of trying to take care of yourself start to finish. And I love it, and the kids love it too, and it just feels good to be out here doing that type of thing.
Well, let's dig right into what you're doing now with Curtis Rempel Handcrafted, and we'll get a little nerdy here about
Yeah.
leather. But so you're making these, handcrafted. It looks like belts, guitar straps, keychains, wallets, pretty much anything. What made you want to start making these type of products?
Um, well, honestly, I've been doing some woodworking. I mean, it's all a hobby, and it's a hobby that pays for itself. I guess that's how I describe it to people. I would love for it to be an actual business one day because I've just realized I love it so much. But I was doing a lot of wood crafting, and then we were on tour, and we were on this tour, and we were opening up for Old Dominion, and we had a 25-minute set. And when you go on tour, every venue kind of feels pretty similar. Your sound checks, everything's saved, so you're not spending a lot of time mixing stuff. You're just kind of like line checking, and then you're done. And then you do a 25-minute set, and you're done. And it was just like I had so much time to kill during the day. And I just found myself on my phone just watching people build tables. And I was like going crazy in my mind because I wasn't building them myself. And I love building them. So watching somebody else do it is almost a version of pain in my chest. And so I was like, man, I have to figure out a way to do this on the road. And I was like, it's impossible though. Like all the tools I need and material, and I was just like trying to think of something. And then all of a sudden I just thought of leather, and I was like, you know what? Leather crafting it's a natural material, even looks kind of like wood as far as the color, and seems like something that you could manipulate into beautiful objects, and maybe I could even fit all the tools I need in a backpack. And so I went online and did some research and watched some people make some belts, and I was like, you know what, I think I can do this. So I just made an order, bought the basic tools and some leather, and started making belts for some of our crew guys and band guys and some of my friends, and it just did not slow down. And now I just do it all the time, and I can't stop, and I'm trying to think of new things to make and different types of leather to work with. And I just found out that I love it so much. And yeah, I'm just going crazy every day. I'm working on leather stuff.
Yeah, so I'm going to get a little more specific here. So I was looking through this different stuff you're making, and you're making them with full grain vegetable tanned leather.
Yeah.
And that's a mouthful. And I have to admit, I had to Google that, and it was pretty interesting reading about that. So can you talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
and why you're making your products that way?
Absolutely. So, the whole world of leather, I've learned, is actually incredibly complicated as far as choosing what type of leather you want to craft with. Vegetable tanned leather is the only a 100% natural way to tan a hide. So obviously, if you have a raw hide from a cow, it doesn't look like the leather products you see me making. So obviously something has to happen between the cow and what I have. And so there's these tanneries, and they, from my understanding, I've never been to a tannery, but just on my research, they kind of have a process that they go through that involves, so vegetable tanning is, they use oak bark and different roots and oils from trees and stuff, and they kind of bathe these hides and that type of thing. And I don't know if that removes the fur or if that gets scrubbed off with some machine or how that works. I don't even know. I just know that they go through this kind of bathing process and then drying and heating and this whole thing. Anyway, I decided to work with vegetable tanned leather because it is the most natural version of leather that you can get. And there's a whole library of different types of vegetable tanned leathers. And so it's pretty complicated, but the way I understand it is, like, if you go shopping at Macy's or JCPenney's or even some more high-end places, 90% of the leather products you'll find on the shelf at a department store or any type of chain would be genuine leather typically. And what genuine leather is okay. So now I'm talking genuine is in the same conversation as full grain. So there's full grain versus genuine. And earlier I was talking about vegetable tan. Vegetable tanned would be versus chrome tanned leather. And there's a bunch of other versions, but to keep things simple, we'll just compare those two things. So vegetable tanned, I explained. Chrome tanned is the same process with different chemicals. So chrome tanned is the much less natural process, which involves chemicals that I don't know anything about, but I do know that it kind of transforms the leather into a more synthetic feel. And over time, the leather will likely start cracking and separating and drying out and the fibers let go. I guess just because leather doesn't appreciate the synthetic chemicals over, the more natural way to tan something. So that's why I choose to use vegetable tan. It's more durable and it lasts longer, and I want my products to be the highest quality they possibly can be. And I just find joy in knowing that. And also, so full grain is the other part of it. Full grain is like a physical part of the leather. So what full grain means is it's the outside of the cow. So like all the hair follicles, the outside of the hide, that's full grain. So if you've got a cow hide, naturally it's going to be in some places almost half an inch thick. So if you have that whole that super thick leather, that's full grain leather. And if you split that leather in half, so it's half as thick, the outside of the cow with all the follicles, that's the full grain leather. And now the inside, now that you've split it, it's more fibrous and not as smooth and less durable. The fibers are bigger so that they can let go of each other more. It's not more as tightly wound, I guess, as the outside of the hide. So that's what they call genuine leather, the inside of the hide. And it's real. And I'm not sure why they use the word genuine, even though the other cuts are also real, but they call it genuine leather. And that's literally the poorest quality leather. If you see genuine leather on something, it just means these fibers are big and they're not tightly wound, and this will stretch and probably break with time. That's what genuine leather is. Full grain leather is the outside of the cow, very, very fine, tight woven fibers. It should last forever if the product's crafted properly. So that's why I use full grain. and that's why I use vegetable tanned leather. Those are two different terms, and when you put them together, it equals the best leather you can possibly get. Does that make any sense?
Right on. It does, and I told you we were going to get very specific and nerdy about this.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. There's very few people I can get this specific and nerdy with.
Yeah. So how long does it take you to make, something specific? So, for instance, let's take like one of your keychains.
Yeah. I mean, a keychain does not take very long. Sometimes I pre-cut a bunch of strips so that I have the strips. I just cut them to length, fold them over, put a rivet in. I mean, I can make a keychain in 5 minutes, but if I have a full hide, I have to cut a straight edge and then rip my strips off that using the straight edge as a reference so I can get nice straight strips. I mean, if I started with full hide and I was going to make one keychain, maybe that would take me 10 minutes, but it depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to bevel the edges and slick them, then it would probably take me 20 minutes. Or if you were going to stitch instead of use a rivet, that would take longer. There's so many different ways to do it, and I just try to make them look I try to make everything look the way I want it to look. Whether the consumer wants it that way or not, I try to not let that affect me because I want to just love my products. So I just try to make everything look the way that I would want it if I was using it. And that's what I do.
Yeah. So do you actually do all the stitching by hand?
Yeah, absolutely. I when I'm doing something bigger like an iPad case or something like that, sometimes I wish I had a leather sewing machine, but that's a pretty huge investment. And then you do lose the hand stitch appeal, I guess. I don't know how valuable that is to most people, but I mean it's a lot of money to buy one of those sewing machines, and that's something I haven't really looked into yet because right now this is still a hobby, but it's kind of in the middle ground. It's starting to feel a little more like a business, but I mean it's a business I absolutely love. So who knows? I might get a sewing machine one day. We'll see. And then I can start doing more, like tote bags and things like that. Because right now, if you hand stitch an entire tote bag, I mean, people do it, but I mean, it's just a lot of time. As soon as you add stitching, you're slowing everything down.
Yeah. So you had mentioned on the onset about making some of these things for your buddies on your crew and in the music industry. So are you working with other influencers like on social media or other people in the music industry as well?
Not a ton. We've been on the Caitlin Bristow podcast a couple times, and I made her dog Ramen. He's from Korea, actually. He's a little golden retriever mixed with something, unless he might be purebred golden retriever, but he's a really, really small retriever. Anyway, I made him a collar and a leash, and I didn't ask her to, but she mentioned it on Instagram, and that was pretty amazing for me. That was easily the coolest, biggest partnership I've had with the leather crafting. So that was pretty awesome. I haven't done a ton of influencer stuff yet, but I am wanting to get more into that because the little bit that I have done, I've seen to be quite fruitful. Also, there's a guy by the name of Trey Hensley. He's a bluegrass guitarist, and he played guitar on a bluegrass version of one of our songs that we recorded recently, a song called Single Man. And he played guitar on it, and we just met when we were recording, and I just asked him if he wanted a guitar strap, and he posted about it too. And that seems to be a really great way to grow my audience. Whenever people that are respected by other people post about my products, I seem to get a lot of new interest. So that's been working really well. So I definitely want to do as much of that as I can.
Yeah. So what's the plans for? I'll touch again here on High Valley in a second, but what's your plans for doing your goods you're making? Are you going to be making different types of products coming up, or what are you doing with that?
Um, man, I don't plan very far ahead. I'm kind of like right here, right now. What do I feel like doing right now? But I imagine I'll be adding different types of products for forever. I mean, I started with just belts, and if you go to my website, I don't know how many different products are on there now, but there's a handful. And probably my next product is going to be camera straps. A lot of people have been asking me about camera straps, so I'd love to start doing that type of thing. I do want to get into tote bags and clutches and more ladies products. My wife is going to help me design a little clutch that I think will be pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll always be working on new stuff and finding new buckles. I'm actually, one of the coolest things I have going on right now is I met a table maker in California while we were on tour, and I mean, that was super cool in itself. He makes these amazing live edge resin tables and all this cool stuff. But his wife is a jeweler, and he connected me with her, and we actually worked together to design a pretty cool belt buckle. So I'm gonna, in a little bit of time, I'm gonna be, offering these extremely custom belts that I was able to design a buckle. So that's I'm pretty excited about that, because that's something that belt's going to be unique. No other leather crafter out there will have the same thing. Like they could design their own, but almost everybody gets their buckles from the same place, or at least from the same library as each other. So I mean, it's the uniqueness is kind of harder to accomplish when you do it that way. But now I'm gonna experiment with coming up with my own buckle designs and stuff, and I think that'll be pretty sweet. But I do want to get back into the whole woodworking thing eventually. Awesome. I've built a handful of tables and just random projects here and there, and I love doing that. It's just I don't have a great way to ship that kind of stuff, and so that's why the leather's so much easier to pursue right now.
Yeah, and I wanted to give your website a plug, which is curtisrempel.com. You are on Instagram at curtis.rempel as well. And just to give a plug for Christmas, I saw that if they place orders by November 15th, you will have them done and shipped in time. And you ship everywhere, right?
Yeah.
All over the world?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I offer free shipping anywhere on planet Earth. So if you have an address, I will do my best to get it to you. That's the thing. I don't know, how long it takes to ship things to certain places if I've never shipped there. But I do know that it takes 10 days to get something to Switzerland. That's where I sent a guitar strap to Switzerland a little while ago. And yeah, that was about 10 days. So
oh, wow.
It's pretty good, but I need time. I need time to know what the orders are to get them done and then shipped by Christmas. I was just thinking about that. I was like, this is my first Christmas with a website and with a place people can order stuff. And I was like, I better let people know that I need a heads up. I can't in 10 days make something and get it to you, I'll need more time than that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. If anybody that's listening is interested in something, yeah, November 15th is the cutoff as far as Christmas gifts are concerned.
Well, cool. So shifting back to your main gig, High Valley, what are you guys doing for the rest of the year?
We've got some pretty amazing gigs coming up. We're playing at the Food and Wine Festival at Epcot at Disney this weekend, actually. So flying out on Friday and, get to take our son on all kinds of rides and stuff, and bringing my wife. So we'll be together for that gig, which is amazing. I'm a hardcore family guy. It's sad for me to leave home without them every single time. So whenever I can bring them, it's amazing. We also have a gig in the Grand Cayman Islands, and we've got a gig in Hawaii. It's like the last bit of the year is just amazing. We have the coolest gigs ever, and I'm bringing my wife to all of them and my kids to some of them. So, yeah, I mean, things are looking amazing for the end of the year.
Well, cool, man. Before we wrap up here, I heard that you and your brother really like barbecue.
Yeah.
And I heard a rumor that maybe Martin's is your favorite, or has that changed?
I absolutely love Martin's. But Jack of Hearts here in Spring Hill is pretty amazing too. And yeah, I love a brisket sandwich. I mean, almost anywhere. It's just good. And I've started smoking my own briskets too. I just can't get enough.
Nice. Yeah. So I wanted to end this with, I found a quote, or maybe you posted this on an Instagram post, and it said, "Cows are so functional, they can fertilize land, produce milk, make brisket and burgers, and then finally become functional accessories that last a lifetime. Hashtag super animal." I just kind of chuckled at that, but it's so true.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about that one day, and I didn't get cows because I'm into leather. I just got cows because I wanted to grow my own beef. And then I just thought about it. I was like, I'm literally making products out of that species. And I was just like, man, from day one, they are just helping the planet. And it's super cool.